One of the great revelations for the Brooklyn Museum as they were planning for this exhibition was realized in this coffin set that we have here. The curator and the scientists in the conservation lab discovered that there was a name on the coffin, and that's not unusual. You needed your name when you went into the afterlife because this was your identity. But they also discovered through infrared photography that there was another name beneath the name that was visible. And this really got them to thinking, well, what could have happened? Why would there be two names? And then they noticed stylistically that the face on the coffin lid was done in a style that was popular 200 years after they thought the coffin dated from. So this seemed to be very, very strange. How do you explain this anomaly, this idea that there are two names on a coffin? The curator called his colleagues around the world and asked if they had ever seen anything like this. And they said, oh yes, it's not uncommon for coffins to have been reused and for one person to obliterate another person's name. So I think that that's really very, very interesting. It triggers all sorts of questions. How is it that a coffin could be reused? In our culture, you can't even imagine the idea of taking the coffin of one person and that's been used and using it again. But in Egypt, it was a little bit different. There are records even dating back to the 19th century when archaeologists would go into a family tomb and see that some mummies were interred in coffins. Some were laid out very, very carefully next to coffins, but with their bodies fully exposed. It really occurred to the curators that perhaps this was that sort of instance where somebody would have gone into a family tomb, maybe as much as 200 years later, and very respectfully remove one of her ancestors, probably with some apologies, but understanding that the coffin did serve its purpose to get the ancestor to the afterlife, and so she no longer needed it, and then painted her name onto it and reused it. It really is a complicated and interesting script that gives you the entire spirit of the exhibition at once.